Is it good? Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, ma ba'd. So inshallah, today we are going to inshallah talk about the rites of Hajj. And you might be thinking, well, why does this title say the rites of Umrah? Because many of the rites of Umrah are part and parcel of the rites of Hajj. So you'll see that how it is very pertinent to speak about Umrah before we speak about Hajj. So to begin, there are four things in the Umrah which are important. They are what we call the pillars. They are the pillars of this action of worship. And a pillar is what holds up a building. So if the pillars are not there, the building will fall down. So we have to have these four essential parts of this worship for the worship to be correct. So these are the four important things you've got to remember when you're doing Umrah. And they are quite straightforward and simple. Inshallah, you'll see they're not difficult. If you remember these four, you inshallah can't go wrong when it comes to Umrah. What are the four things? First thing is Ihram. And Ihram is a state that you go into, you make an intention, and after that intention, then certain things become forbidden for you. So you have to wear certain clothing and you can't do certain things. So it is an intention with which certain things become forbidden. If you want to have if you want to get a better idea of what it is, think about when you go into the state of fasting. Fasting, you make an intention. After you've made that intention, certain things become forbidden for you. Ihram is exactly the same thing, except that it's done at a particular place, at a particular time. So at that time and at that place, when you make an intention, certain things become forbidden for you. The second thing is tawaf. Tawaf is to perform 7 circuits around the Kaaba. That's the tawaf. And it has to be done with certain conditions. If those conditions are fulfilled, then the tawaf is correct. The next thing is sa'i. Sa'i, you may have not heard of this word before. Sa'i, it's basically to go from the mountain of Safa to the mountain of Marwa, up and down the mountain, from one mountain to the other mountain, 7 circuits again. Again, might seem a bit strange, mountains, but when you actually see it, it doesn't look like a mountain. So I have some visuals as well that you can see, inshallah, make the matter easier. And the final thing with which the Umrah is completed is to trim your hair or to shave your head. Obviously, the shaving is exclusively for men. They have a choice to shave or to trim, but for the women, there is only trimming. So there's no idea that the women are going to shave their head. Go to the next slide, please. So to begin, people, when they go from here, they become very overwhelmed because they're already anxious. They go there, they see the crowds, and they forget everything. The important thing is don't panic. Act on the knowledge that you have. And don't be like those people just because they see people doing things, they do them. Don't do that. Act on the knowledge. You have certain knowledge, you've studied it, so you know what to do. Next slide, please. So the first thing is the Ihram. What is the Ihram? The Ihram is, basically, there's 2 constituents to it. First is time and second is place. A miqat is time and place. You come to a miqat, that's a place, at a specific time, if it's the days of Hajj, and then you go into the state of Ihram by making intentions there. So you arrive at the miqat, where the muhrim, the person who's going to into the state of Ihram, makes an intention. Once he makes that intention, he is in the state of Ihram. So let me just clarify that. What is a miqat? The Prophet ﷺ, as Allah instructed him, he ordained for us 5 miqats, 5 stations. They are in different sides of the compass, in different directions of the compass. Anybody who comes to Mecca from any of these miqat, he will pass by one of these miqat. So the closest one to him, he will either pass by it or come to it or pass over it. The point is that when he comes to it, he assumes the state of Ihram. How does he assume the state of Ihram? He makes an intention. So the intention is in his heart, but he says some words. So if he's performing Umrah, he will say, Labbaik Allahumma Umratan, or Allahumma Labbaik Umratan, any of those words. If he's performing
you okay to take questions?
No.
I think we do them afterwards. Or is it important?
No, it's not.
Okay, we'll do the questions afterwards because then otherwise we're going to keep stopping. Okay, so you come to the miqat. When you come to the miqat, you're going to make the state of ihram. You're going to go into the state of ihram. But when you're going to make the state of ihram, there's certain things going to be forbidden for you straight away. So you have to prepare beforehand for those things. What are those things? First thing is, inshallah we'll cover those, but you have to be in the state of ihram. You have to be in the clothes of ihram before you make the intention. So that's something, you might be thinking about that. That's something that's going to come later on. The point is, ihram is assumed at the miqat. Come to the miqat or pass by the miqat or fly over the miqat. Where's this feedback coming? Oh, maybe if we turn those mics off. The upper one. Maybe there, I don't know. Is that what's creating interference? Let's hope that stops now. Inshallah. Sounds better already. Okay, so you arrive at the miqat, and at the miqat, the muhrim assumes the state of ihram. He can't pass the miqat and then half an hour later think, oh, I haven't performed the... It's a little bit better, but it's still there. He can't pass by after the miqat, after half an hour, and think, oh, I didn't perform the ihram, I didn't make the intention, so let me do it now. You have to make the intention whilst you're in the miqat or passing by the miqat. Once you've passed the miqat, it's too late. What happens if you don't do it? Then you have to slaughter an animal or give dam, because you left something which was wajib, which was the miqat. Okay, make an ihram at the miqat. Next slide. So when you arrive at the miqat, what is recommended for you is to obviously have prepared beforehand. To have prepared beforehand. So how do we prepare beforehand? What do we do? Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he came to the miqat, his miqat was the miqat of Medina. People who travel from the UK or from Europe, or even from America, when they're coming, they usually come in this direction. So when they come in this direction, the same miqat for them. What's the miqat of Medina called? Dhul Hulayfa. That's the correct name for it. So when the Prophet came to Dhul Hulayfa, so he left Medina, and the miqat of Medina is right on the edge of Medina. So before he left his home, what did he do? He prepared beforehand. What did he do? He bathed. He bathed himself. And he trimmed his mustache, he clipped his nails, and he did the bodily hair that we have to remove, armpit hair and groin hair, pubic hair, remove the pubic hair, and he prepared himself. Then he put on the clothes of ihram. But he's not in the state of ihram yet. Then he came to Dhul Hulayfa, the miqat. When he came to the miqat, this is when he made his intention. Next slide. How is the intention made? What was the words that the Prophet said? Allahumma labbaik umratan. Or labbaik Allahumma umratan. Any of those words. And then after that he started to make something called the talbiyah. The talbiyah are those words that a person says who is going to perform, who is on his way in the state of ihram going to perform Hajj or Umrah. He says these words, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. So you'll say those words. Once you assumed ihram at the miqat and you leave the miqat, when you leave the miqat you start to say these words. The men at the time of the Prophet used to say it loud. The Prophet said the best Hajj is al-ajj wal-thajj. Those are the words of the Prophet. Al-ajj, where the people raise their voices with talbiyah a lot, and a thajj, where there's lots of slaughtering. That's the best Hajj. So raising one's voice with talbiyah is recommended. So the men will raise their voices. Obviously the ladies won't raise their voice. They will say it to themselves. And it's a common practice, one person saying and everybody screaming behind him. No, this is not the way to do it. Everybody says it on their own. Okay? You continue. So, when you assume the ihram, once you've made the intention, that's what it means by assuming the ihram. You've made the intention now. Once I've made the intention at the miqat, I've said labbaik Allahumma umratan. Now there's some restrictions that apply to me. Now I have to be careful. Just like when I've gone into the state of fasting, I've got to be careful. I can't eat, I can't drink. There's so many restrictions for me. In the same way, when you enter into the state of ihram, then the restrictions apply. So you've got to be mindful of those restrictions, and you start to say the talbiyah. And of course, remember again, you can't pass the miqat and then think, oh, I didn't go into the ihram. You have to make sure that you've done it before you pass. Next slide. Now then, the restrictions. What are the restrictions? One of the commonly asked questions is, what can I wear? As a man, what can I wear? So there's a dress code for men, and there's a dress code for women. What can men wear? 2 plain pieces of white cloth which is not sewn together in the form of the body. Most people don't understand this. When you tell them this, they don't really have a proper grasp of it. You know, when we say 2 sheets, it means they're open-ended. It's like this. It's open-ended. You know, nowadays, there's a lot of ways that people cheat. It's not sewn, but it may as well be sewn. For example, some people nowadays have invented an ihram. It's like a tube. You step into it, and then you lift it up. That's sewn in the form of the body, isn't it? Because it's shaped round. You're stepping into it. If you look at this qameez, this is in the form of the body. Why? Because there's an opening for the head. Put my head through it. There's opening for the arms. That's sewn to the form of the body. Those ihrams that people step into, and it's like a tube that they're stepping into, that is in the form of the body. That's not allowed. Also, what's not allowed is when sometimes, the scholars say you can use a pin or 2 safety pins to hold the ihram. So somebody comes along and puts 50 safety pins. So it's like a shirt. They said, but it's not sewn in the form of the body. There's no stitching. It doesn't have to be stitching. It's to the form of the body, isn't it? All those pins, it may as well be stitching. Other people will come with so many titch buttons that it's like a shirt. All of that is not allowed. 2 plain pieces of cloth. What do you do with them? You wrap them around your body. So one is worn around the waist, and one is worn on the shoulders. No underwear, no socks, no hat. You can't wear any of those things. The scholars allow for the use of a safety pin or 2 safety pins. That's Sheikh bin Baz and some of the scholars have given sanction that you can do that, but it shouldn't be 100 safety pins so it's like a shirt. It shouldn't be like that. Footwear. Footwear is one of those points of contention between some of the madhahib. Some of the madhahib, the ahnaf, they say that the top bone on the foot should be uncovered. But there is no proof to suggest that. As long as you're wearing sandals which don't cover the ankle. Based on the statement of Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas asked, the Prophet was asked, Ya Rasulullah, if one of us doesn't have sandals, what should he wear? So the Prophet said, you can wear a khuf, but you cut the top of the khuf. That cut the top of the khuf was from Ibn Abbas. So that was his understanding, that it should be cut from the top of the top of the khuf, so the ankle is bare. So scholars have taken that it should be a sandal and the ankle should be bare. The scholars say that it's allowed to wear a belt. Some scholars are very strict, they say nothing at all. But I'm giving you the common fatwas from the scholars of Saudi Arabia, what they're saying. And they say that it's allowed to wear a belt or a pouch or a money belt or something like that, that can help to support your ihram, and also you can use it to carry your things. So you can use something like that. And it is allowed to wear glasses. So glasses you're allowed to wear. Watches you're allowed to wear. Rings you're allowed to wear. Those sort of things you're allowed to wear. Next one. So for a woman, what can she wear? For a woman, she will wear a jilbab. What is a jilbab? A jilbab is an outer garment which covers all of her body. The jilbab can come from the shoulders down. So she wears it, it comes from here to here, and then she can wrap her head with a scarf. Or in some jilbabs, they start at the head and they flow down like this. That's also a jilbab. So she wears an outer jilbab, under which she can wear any clothing she wants. Does the jilbab have to be a particular color? There is no particular color. The idea is that you should, the jilbab of a woman, it shouldn't be something which is too attractive that people are turned towards it in attention. So that's what a woman can wear. In terms of footwear, she can wear any type of footwear. So she can wear trainers, she can wear socks. She will wear, if she wants to wear shalwar kameez underneath, if she wants to wear trousers underneath, if she, whatever she wants to wear, her normal clothes, she can wear them. There's no restriction for her. What are the restrictions for the woman? Under her jilbab, she can wear anything. The only restrictions for a woman is, first of all, she cannot have a niqab which is tied. So if she normally wears a niqab, when she's in the state of ihram, she can't wear a niqab. But there is no harm. If there's people around, she covers her face with her scarf. What's that based on? Based on the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha. When she used to perform the tawaf, she would perform it at night and she would have the lanterns turned down, and then if people passed, she would cover her face with her niqab. So it's allowed based on that to cover the face, but with a niqab which is not tied. And also she is not allowed to go to the next slide. She's not allowed to cover her hands. She can't wear gloves. She can cover her hands, but she's not allowed to cover them with gloves. So a woman, she may have a long sleeve and she hides her hands like that. There's nothing wrong with that. What she can't do, if she normally wears gloves, she can't wear gloves. That's part of the ihram of a woman, but she can't wear. Go ahead. What are the restrictions applicable? Oh, yeah, we've done that one. Yeah. So what are the restrictions of ihram? There are restrictions which are common to men and women. And there are restrictions which are exclusively for women, and there are restrictions which are exclusively for men. So let's look at what is applicable for both of them. Did we talk about the restrictions for men? Yeah, so the men, they can't wear sewn clothes and they can't cover their body. That's exclusively for men. A man can't wear a hat. Can they use an umbrella? Yes, they can. Because umbrella is not attached to the head. Can they sit in a coach with a roof? Yes, they can. You'll see some of the Shia, they do something extreme. It'll be blazing hot, but they will have a coach which doesn't have a roof. Because they took the idea about their not having covering on their head to the extreme. And that's not what's meant. What's the proof for that? The Prophet, when he was in the state of ihram, sat in a tent. There was a tent for him. Goes to show you can have a covering over you, but the covering shouldn't be touching your head. So, even some of those things like where people have like a band and they have like an umbrella on the band, that's not allowed because it's attached to your head. You can have an umbrella just like that. You can sit in a coach which is got a roof on it. You can sit in a tent. All of those things are allowed. So you can't cover your head directly with something like that. And we spoke about the restrictions to the woman. She can't wear gloves and she can't wear a niqab. Keep going. Now, the restrictions which are common to both sexes, what both people can't do. Once you've assumed the state of ihram, these are the restrictions. So when you assume the state of ihram, you can't remove bodily hair. You can't cut your hair. You can't trim your mustache. You can't remove pubic hair. All of that should have been done beforehand. Once you go in the state of ihram, you're not allowed to do that. Also, you can't trim your nails once you're in the state of ihram. Also, perfuming. Before you go into the state of ihram, before you make your intention, the Prophet perfumed. What did he perfume? He perfumed his body. You're not allowed to perfume the clothes. You can't perfume the ihram. What you perfume is your body. And then after that, when you go into the state of ihram, you can't put perfume on after that. So you've got to avoid all those things which would normally be used as perfume. So scholars say about avoiding things like scented soaps and things like that, because although you don't use the soap, but you're going to get scent on you, so best avoided. All of those things best avoided. So avoid those scented things. Also, you can't hunt. Now, you might be thinking, now, well, what do we need to hunt for? Now you perform the Umrah in luxury, or the Hajj in luxury. Everything is provided for you. A journey which is thousands of miles, we do it in a few hours. The time of the Prophet, people would perform from Medina, they would come to perform Umrah. It would take them 10 to 12 days on camel. So you can imagine they're carrying their provisions. Sometimes you couldn't have You can, you exhaust your provisions. And then, of course, if an animal comes along that you can hunt for food, it's an option, isn't it, to save your life. Obviously, in the case of saving your life, if it's a necessity, you can do that anyway. But generally, if it's not a necessity, then a person who is in the state of ihram wouldn't do that. It's forbidden for them. So you can't hunt. Next one. What are the restrictions of ihram? You cannot enter into marriage contracts. Somebody's getting married, be a witness. You can't be a witness. You can't be part of a marriage contract. Also, you have to avoid intimacy. And it's amazing how shaitan then starts to play on your mind. You're with your wife, and all of a sudden, she's super attractive all of a sudden. Shaitan. So what do? Avoid anything that will lead to intimacy. And of course, it's not allowed for you to have a relationship with your wife in the state of ihram. So, when you arrive in Mecca, what have you been doing all the way from Medina to Mecca? Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika laka. You're saying the talbiyah. Sometimes you're saying it very loud, sometimes you're saying it to yourself. You can stop saying it, you can take a rest, you can sleep, but the point is that you make use of your time. Okay. When do you keep saying up till you see the Kaaba? There are some different opinions. Some say when you see the houses of Mecca. Some say that when you see the Masjid al-Haram. Some say that when you see the Kaaba. And Wallahu Alam, there is nothing to stop you from saying the talbiyah until you see the Kaaba. So when you see the Kaaba, that's when you stop saying the talbiyah. So when you come to Mecca, you enter Masjid al-Haram. Now, for those of you who may be not too familiar, is that how it is? Okay. Yeah, I think there's... Sorry, go back. The presentations, for whatever reason, maybe the software, it's not coming out the way it should have come. Is that on the slideshow? Put on the slideshow. No. Okay. So, for those of you who've never been to Mecca, when you come to Masjid al-Haram, Masjid al-Haram is a huge building. When you enter into Masjid al-Haram, if you keep going, you come into what is the forecourt of the masjid. In the forecourt of the masjid is where the Kaaba is. So when you enter the masjid, you can continue to say the talbiyah. When you enter the masjid, you remember the etiquettes of the masjid. So Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah, Allahumma aftah li abwaba rahmatik, and enter with your right foot. Once you enter into the masjid, you can continue to go. There is a narration which says that when you see the Kaaba, you can make dua. So you can make dua when you see the Kaaba. Sayyidina Umar is narrated from him. There's a dua that he said, Rabbana anta salam wa minka salam, hayyana Rabbana bis salam. That is a dua that he used to say. But any dua can be made. Some people, because when they want to see the Kaaba for the first time, they're really excited and they think, I don't want to just be looking at the Kaaba. When I'm right in front of it, that's when. And then they put their head down, and before they know it, they tumble down the stairs or bump into people. You got to be careful about things like that. So when you come to the Kaaba, you can make dua when you first see the Kaaba. All this idea about the closest gate to the hotels, it's all relative depending on where you are now. So those are not important things. The important thing is that there are gates, and especially at this time, we find that there are specific gates for people who are wearing ihram, because they know you are coming to perform the Umrah and the Hajj, so they will allow you to come to the ground floor. The ground floor is what is called the Mataf area. Mataf means that place which is around the Kaaba. So you have this forecourt on the ground floor where you're beside the Kaaba. You can perform the tawaf from above, but this area is specifically for those who are performing Hajj and Umrah. Those who are just making nafil tawaf, they can make tawaf on the upper floors. They are not allowed to go on the ground floor. So you will come to the Mataf area. So when you come to the Kaaba, if we are looking at the Kaaba from a bird's eye view, so from above, what do you see? You see that it is a cuboid building. It hasn't come up. It hasn't come up on this presentation for whatever reason. I'm not sure why it hasn't come up. Anyway, so there's a cuboid building. So imagine there's a cuboid building in this grey square. And what is being identified is the black stone. Is this opened in PowerPoint? No, we need to open it in PowerPoint, then it'll come up properly.
I don't think PowerPoint should be some of the software.
See, if it was on PowerPoint, it will be, that was the whole idea behind this, doing this presentation, is so that it will be audio visual, so you can get the idea. However, it doesn't look like it. No, it's not. Okay, it's all right. We'll just continue the way it is. It's okay. Just turn it off. It's all right. Yeah. So imagine now, just for your benefit, imagine now that there is a cube here, and on this cube, it's highlighting this corner of this cuboid building. So this corner here is where the black stone is. So that's the black stone. And this is the door of the Kaaba. This here is what we call the station of Ibrahim, Maqam Ibrahim. I'm going to sit back there again. Maqam Ibrahim. Maqam Ibrahim is the stone upon which Ibrahim ﷺ stood when he built the Kaaba. So when he built the Kaaba, first of all, he was building until he built it to a certain height. Then after that, he had to stand on a stone to raise the foundations further, to make the walls higher. And when he stood on that, his footprints are embedded in the rock, and that then later Sayyidina Umar said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, it would be a good thing if we would take the station of Ibrahim as a place of prayer. And then Allah revealed, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. And so after that point, whenever you perform tawaf, you perform 2 units of prayer at Maqam Ibrahim. So just again, so the black stone is in one corner. Next to the black stone is the door of the Kaaba. And then, as you're passing by on your right hand side, you've got the Kaaba on your left hand side. On your right hand side, you've got the dome, which has got Maqam Ibrahim, the stone of Ibrahim there. And then, if you go around, you've got a semicircular wall. You've got the cuboid building, and then you've got a semicircular wall. That is also part of the Kaaba. It was also originally part of the Kaaba, but later when the Quraysh rebuilt the Kaaba, because of the lack of funds, they didn't build those walls up. So you have to go around the Hijr as well. That semicircular wall, you have to go around it all for it to be a complete circuit. You can't cut through. And once you pass that, you come right round. The last corner before you go back to the black stone is called the Yemeni corner. You will notice when you go to perform Hajj and Umrah, you will see that the only corner which is uncovered is that corner, because that's the corner you're supposed to be touching. The rest of the Kaaba is all covered with what we call the kiswa, the covering of the Kaaba. The Prophet never touched any wall. He never touched any corner except this corner and the black stone. And that's the sunnah of the Prophet. People will go around rubbing the... None of this is correct. The only thing that the Prophet did when he got the opportunity was kiss the black stone, or between the black stone and the door of the Kaaba, there is an area which is called the Multazim. And there the Prophet, when he got the opportunity, he pushed his body against the Kaaba. So his chest, his face, his arms, his hands, and then he remained there making dua and crying to Allah. So this was the sunnah of the Prophet, and you see people doing that. Beside that is the door of the Kaaba. Then if you continue, the Maqam Ibrahim Asmiyat for the days of Hajj. So you remain like that in normal clothes, in ease and comfort until the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. When the 8th of Dhul Hijjah comes, then you put your ihram clothes back on. So you perform all of the necessary things: bathe, perfume, trim your hair, trim your mustache, cut your nails on, so all those things. And then you say, Labbaik Allahumma Hajjan. You make from your hotel room the intention for Hajj. So you don't need to go to the miqat, from your hotel room. You go from your hotel room, Labbaik Allahumma Hajjan, and then you'll go from there to, where will you go? You will go to Mina. So on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, you will make your intention that morning. Keep going. And you will consider the talbiyah from that point. So once you go back into the state of ihram, you say the talbiyah. You can continue to say the talbiyah now. You're in the state of ihram. On the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and you will go to a place called Mina. You see this picture here? This picture here, for those of you who haven't been, it goes to show the boundary. These mark the boundaries of Mina. So the Hajj is place sensitive. You have to be at that place. Yeah? That's why they have those. So you'll be in Mina. What did the Prophet do in Mina? On the morning of the 8th, he went to Mina. When he went to Mina, he arrived at Dhuhr time and he performed the Dhuhr prayer at its time. And when of course, it's shortened, but it's not combined. And then, of course, in the evening, he prayed the Asr prayer. And then in the Maghrib time, he prayed his Maghrib prayer. And the Isha time, he prayed the Isha prayer. And then at Fajr time, the next morning, he performed the Fajr prayer. All of that was in Mina. So he performed all his prayers shortened, but they were offered at that time. What do you do when you're in Mina? You prepare for the next day. The day of what we call the day of Tarwiyah. Tarwiyah means rawiyah, means to replenish oneself. So drink, eat, sleep, rest, because the next day is a big day. That is the day of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Arafah. Those who are not performing Hajj, they will be fasting. Those who are performing Hajj, they will not fast. They are going to the plain of Arafah. So on that morning, you're in the state of Ihram. Now you will head from Mina to Arafah. Where is Arafah? It is outside of the boundary of Mecca. So it's the furthest place of all of the places that you're required to be performing the Hajj. It's the furthest place. So you will go there. You see in the picture, this is the iconic picture of Arafah. What's the iconic picture? The Mountain of Mercy, which is a name which is given by the lay people. It's not the real name for that mountain. It's just the mountain of Arafah. And this obelisk, which signifies that that's what that mountain is. People often do very strange things there. You're not required to do those things. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So you will travel until you arrive in the place of Arafah. Arafah again has markers. Now this is very essential that you are in the plain of Arafah. If you miss Arafah, coming into the plain of Arafah in the designated time, you have no Hajj. You can slaughter 1,000 camels, your Hajj will not be accepted. The Prophet said, Al-Hajju Arafah. Hajj is Arafah. It is the most emphasized pillar of Hajj. So you have to be in the plain of Arafah. So you'll come to Arafah. When the Prophet came to Arafah, what did he do? He arrived just before Dhuhr. And then he prayed Dhuhr and Asr, combined and shortened. Where, if you imagine that this area here is just on the outskirts of Arafah, and this is Arafah. So the Prophet came to a place called Namira. There is a masjid called Masjidun Namira. That's why it's called Namira, because that's where the Prophet went. So they built a masjid called Masjidun Namira. This Namira was outside of Arafah. The Prophet performed at the time of Dhuhr, 2 units for Dhuhr and 2 units for Asr. And he performed them combined and shortened. So he performed 2 for each one of them, and he performed them both together at Dhuhr time. So the adhan came for Dhuhr, he prayed 2 units. Then, so they made the iqamah, they prayed 2 units with the imam. Then they made the iqamah for Asr, and they performed 2 units. And then the Prophet came in from Namira to Arafah. Those of you who get the opportunity ever, if you go to Arafah and you decide to go to the masjid, it's a good thing. It's not necessary, it's a good thing. If you go there, that's fine, not a problem. There's no recommendation to go there, but if you decide that you want to go there, that's fine. But what you have to bear in mind, that half of the masjid is in Arafah and half of it is out of Arafah. So if you stayed at the front of that masjid through the whole day, you have not entered Arafah. And this is why in the masjid they have a red line going through the middle of the masjid to tell you have to cross that boundary to be in Arafah. So you have to be in Arafah. What did the Prophet do? Allah's Messenger ﷺ, after he performed the Dhuhr and Asr prayer, he came into Arafah. And then he went to his place where he was going to sit. And it just happened to be at the foot of the mountain of Arafah. And he faced the direction of the Qibla, and he spent all of that time making dua. What did he do? Dua. This is what we're supposed to do. And the Prophet said to his companions, وَقِفْتُ هَا هُنَا, I stood here. وَالْعَرَفَةُ كُلُّهُ مَوْقِفٌ. But all of Arafah is a place of standing. Meaning wherever you stand in Arafah, as long as it's in Arafah, it's fine. You don't have to stand there. But obviously when you make dua, you face the Qibla. So that's what you will do. In Arafah, facing the Qibla, you will make dua. Once you've done Dhuhr and Asr, the Prophet did a sermon. So in your group, if somebody is with you, you don't have to go to the masjid. What you'll do in your camp, you will perform Dhuhr and Asr together as a group. And then if there is somebody amongst the people who can give people a motivational reminder to get them into the mood, to remind them what they're supposed to be doing, he can do that, that's fine. It's not a condition to listen to the khutbah, it's not a condition. Now you will then continue to make dua until Maghrib time comes. The Prophet said, the best dua that me and the Prophets made on the day of Arafah is La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa ala kulli shay'in qadir. So that's what you will try and say a lot of. But that time you can make any dua. This is not the day. Some people unfortunately treat it like any other day. This is not the day to make polite conversation with people that you meet and sip tea and take 40 winks. This is not that day. On this day, the Prophet performed the prayers early so that he could spend all of that time in making dua. So you will make dua. Ask Allah for your forgiveness, for your dunya and your akhirah, for all your loved ones, for the Muslim ummah. You will make as much dua as you can. And this is where you really try and find yourself in the dua. Your heart is part and parcel of that dua, not just lip service. And of course, shedding tears and, making khushu with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of that is part and parcel of this dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day boasts to the angels, and He says to the angels, look at these slaves of mine. Why have they come dirty and disheveled? You've been in ihram for a few days. Your clothes are, white clothes in that dusty area is going to become, you're not going to be your normal self, well presented. Maybe you're going to have dust in your head and you're going to be dusty and you're not perfumed, and maybe because you haven't taken a shower, maybe you don't smell like you normally might smell. Allah is boasting to the angels that you have forgotten all of the things that would be normally things important to you. Why? Because there is something more important. And what is that? Ridallah, to please Allah. You come to that plane to please Allah. So Allah boasts to the angels, and He says to the angels, look at these slaves of mine. Why have they come here dirty and disheveled? The angels say, Allah, they have come asking for your forgiveness and your mercy. Allah laughs. Allah says, tell them I have forgiven them. On that day, which is the best day of the year, Allah descends to the lower heaven. Why? Because of what people are doing. Allah is pleased with what they're doing. And on that day, Shaitan throws dust in his head. And he says, woe to me, the son of Adam was ordered, he's doing obedience. On that day, he is wretched and miserable because he sees that the son of Adam is being successful. You will remain in the plain of Arafah, making dua and continuing to do dhikr and dua until the Maghrib time comes. When Maghrib comes, and only until Maghrib comes, then you will leave the plain of Arafah. When the time of the Prophet, when the companions, that's it, just wait there. So when the time for Maghrib comes, as the time of the Prophet, when they said, Ya Rasulullah, Maghrib is here, should we pray? He said, no, continue. So the point is, the Prophet didn't pray Maghrib in Arafah. When the time, sunset came, Maghrib time came, that's when you will leave Arafah. You will not leave Arafah before that. And this is why the roads to Arafah are closed. Once you enter Arafah, they will not allow you to leave, because you're supposed to stay there till Maghrib time, sunset. When sunset comes, then the roads will be open, and then you will leave. You will not pray Maghrib in Arafah, but you will go on that evening, which is the night of the 10th. The night of the 10th, you will go to a place called Muzdalifah. This is Muzdalifah. No buildings, no 5-star hotels, Not even a tent. You know, people talk about 5-star. This is multi-star. All you have is the street side. That's what you will sleep on. The night of Muzdalifah, where the Prophet ﷺ came, his companions arrived, they were weary and tired. The Prophet ﷺ ordered, the adhan was made, then they made the iqamah. The Prophet ﷺ performed 3 units for Maghrib, then they made the iqamah for Isha, they made 2 units for Isha, and then the Prophet ﷺ slept. There is no mention of the witr prayer. But what we know is that Allah's Messenger ﷺ never missed a witr prayer. So you would perform the witr prayer and then you would sleep. Some people have a misconception about this day. Oh, this is the best day of the night, the best night of the year. So on this night you shouldn't be sleeping, you should be praying. What is the best thing to do on that night? What the Prophet did. Is there anybody who knows the merit of any night better than the Prophet? What did he do? He slept. He was tired. He has more things to do the next day. So he slept. So you would sleep. You would remain in Muzdalifah until the morning. Now, normally you would stay there. There is no reason for you to leave. You would stay in Muzdalifah, sleep the night there. But there is relaxation for the rules for the elderly, for the women, for the children, and those people who are supporting them, or those people who have jobs. They have a reason to go forward because maybe they're providing a service for the Hujjaj. So they are allowed to leave after half the night. What is half the night? If you go from Maghrib till Fajr and look at the time in between, divide that in half, that's half the night. Half the night is not necessarily 12 o'clock. This is obviously an English concept that. Our half the night does not always fix to a particular time. It is whatever time comes between Fajr and Maghrib and Fajr. So after half the night, it is allowed for those people to leave. So they may leave early. So they will leave early and they will go to Mina. The rest of the people, they will remain behind. They will sleep. In the morning they will get up, they will perform. Keep on. So that is on the 10th. The 10th of Dhul Hijjah is called the Yawm al-Nahr. You call it the day of Adha. It's the day, what we call the day of al-Nahr, the day of slaughter, Nahr. You pray Fajr in Muzdalifah. So you will get up, perform wudu, and believe me, you know, you can be only 20 feet that way and forget where you are and not find your camp and be lost because there's so many people. You go to the toilet, okay, you found your way to the toilet and then you can't find your way back. What do? If anybody gets lost, continue to do what people are doing, what you're supposed to do. You will eventually meet all the people because they will all come together. So don't start panicking. I can't find my people, I'm lost, and the whole of the Hajj is just like that. No. We had a very elderly gentleman one year, was very elderly, and was not too well as well. On the day of Muzdalifah, on that morning, he went to the toilet, we couldn't find him. We waited, we couldn't find him. We couldn't wait any longer, we continued. 2 days later, he turned up at the camp to our relief because he knew what he was doing. And it was very refreshing to hear. He said, I know what I had to do. I know I couldn't find the camp, I'd lost. So I didn't bother spending time looking for the camp. I did what I knew I had to do, was to perform the Hajj. And eventually he found himself back to the camp. So this is what you would do. So you'll perform, the adhan will be said, you'll perform the 2 sunnahs for Fajr, because the Prophet, even while he was traveling, he never left those 2 sunnahs. So you perform the sunnah, and then you will do the fard prayer with the imam, and then you will remain in Muzdalifah making dua. Making dua. There is a masjid there at Muzdalifah called Mash'ar al-Haram. Mash'ar al-Haram is mentioned in the Quran. Allah says about remembering Allah at Mash'ar al-Haram. So you remember Allah in Mash'ar al-Haram, which is that area of Muzdalifah, making dua until the sun comes up. When the sun comes up, that's when the Prophet moved from Muzdalifah now to Mina. So look, he started off at the furthest place, Arafah. Then he came to Muzdalifah. Now he is going to Mina. Yeah, so that's Mina is the closest to Mecca. He will come to Mina. So you return to Mina. What is he required to do when you come to Mina? This is the morning of the 10th. So the first thing that you're required to do is go and stone the jamarat. The jamarat, as you can see this picture here, is a wall. The jamarat is now represented by walls. It's a huge wall. Maybe it's about as wide as this room, even wider perhaps. Width of this, and probably twice the height or 1.5 times the height. And around it is a small wall, maybe waist height or slightly higher, maybe chest height. And this is what we call the jamra. These are the areas when Ibrahim a.s. came to slaughter his son Ismail. Shaitan came to them and he tried to dissuade them from carrying out Allah's order, which was to slaughter Ismail. So they stoned him. So now this is the sunnah of Ibrahim a.s. to stone the jamra. Shaitan isn't tied there, so you're not stoning him. When you come to stone, you will stone with 7 pebbles. Where do you get those pebbles from? Anywhere. There is no specific place. But the one place that you can't take those stones from is around the jamra. So now I had 7 stones, somebody knocked me, I lost 2 of them. So I just picked them up from there? No, that's not allowed. So always carry extra stones. Now you need 7 pebbles. You know, in some people's language, pebbles are not pebbles. The Prophet gave us an idea about the size. He says the size of chickpeas, hummus. How big is a chickpea? You know, some people's chickpeas are mutated chickpeas. The idea is not to put a hole in the wall. The idea is just to throw a pebble that if it doesn't hit the wall but it goes down the well, that's the idea. You are carrying out the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. You are not going to war. So you will not throw it from 10 miles away and hit poor Awais which just happens to be in the way. Bang. You know, don't do things like that. Some people will throw glass bottles. Some people, I even saw one year, there was a gentleman when these pillars were just pillars. He decided to jump on the pillar, took his shoe off. He's an Egyptian guy. And he started to beat the pillar with his shoe, saying, Shaitan, you got the best of me. And wallahi, even there, Shaitan was getting the best of him. Because he was being pelted by everybody else. So that's not the idea. You are doing something, an action of worship. So you do it the way the Prophet did it. Chickpea size. So you will go right up to the hawd. The wall which is like a funnel, because this wall, between this small wall where the larger wall is in the middle, the idea is to hit the larger wall if you can. If you can't, that's not important. And then the pebble to fall down and filter down into the bottom, funnel down into the bottom, because it's supposed to land in a certain place. If you hit the wall and you hit it so hard and it bounced back out, didn't go down into the funnel, it doesn't count. So the idea is not to hit it hard so it bounces around and starts hitting other people. The idea is to drop it in that well. That's the idea. So you will come right up to the wall. You know what most people do? Imagine if you're coming from this way and that's the beginning of the jamra. This is the jamra in the middle, that's the wall around it, like that. Everybody is gathered there. This side is empty. You have people throwing it from like 6 million miles away, and you know all they have to do is walk around them and just come right up to the wall and just drop the pebbles in. So you got to use a little bit of this. So you come, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's all. Men will stone, women will stone, children will stone. There's no problem. As long as you are sensible, there is no problem. So you will come and stone the pillars, and yeah, you know, some people have this idea that they have to wash the pebbles and they have to maybe care for the pebbles and kiss the pebbles and stroke the pebbles. They are just pebbles. Bismillah, Allah, that's all. You don't have to wash them with zamzam or any of that. None of that nonsense. After stoning, so all of that time that you've been, from the 8th till now, you can say the talbiyah. But once you've stoned, the talbiyah stops. This is the day of Eid. So Allah replaced the talbiyah with something else. The takbirat of Eid. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You know the takbirat of Eid that we normally say? Those takbirat. So you can continue to say those. So now you've stoned. What's the next thing to do? Sacrifice. If you're performing tamattu, part of the tamattu hajj is to slaughter. So you will sacrifice. You will sacrifice an animal which is called hadi. Hadi has certain rules. So obviously the age of the animal is the same, but there is certain rules that the slaughter has to be in Mecca, and then the meat is distributed to the people of Mecca. So you may not necessarily have to go and slaughter. You can have somebody else do that on your behalf. Something we call tawkeel. You give the responsibility, you pay them for their services, and they go and carry that out on your behalf. Obviously you won't look for somebody who is likely going to pocket the money, run away and not do the slaughter for you. So obviously look for somebody who's reliable. Obviously the groups that you go with, they will help you. The government also has organizations that carry that out for you. So you can pay them and they will do that on your behalf. So you don't need to go to the slaughterhouse. And believe me, you haven't seen a slaughterhouse until you go there. It's so huge. I just happened to be one of those, my first year when I performed Hajj, going back a long time ago. When the first year when I came to Medina to study, I performed Hajj. And I decided that I wanted to go and slaughter myself, which was a good thing, because I was a young man. I had, the strength and the resolve to do it, or the resolve to do it. So I went and I decided that, let me go and visit the camels. So I came to the camel pens, and these camels, they are huge animals. And, as soon as we entered the pen, this camel came running and was standing right above my head. Any minute, I think he would have crushed me. Just some Yemeni gentleman came running out of nowhere with his stick, and he just stood in front of me and beat the camel in his face, and the camel ran back, and I was thankful to Allah that I was still alive. So, you have to be really careful what you're doing when you go to the slaughterhouse. So, you have to slaughter an animal. For every single Haji, there is one slaughter. So you can slaughter a sheep, slaughter a goat. But if you want to slaughter a bigger animal, you can do that. And 7 people can share in a cow or in a camel. So 7 people can come together and share one of those animals. Or if you're doing it for yourself, you can just slaughter a sheep or a goat. And that will be sufficient for the sacrifice. And then that meat is then distributed to the people of Mecca. After that, the next thing the Prophet did was then he cut his hair. So if you arrive in Mecca and then do Umrah and you don't have very much time, might not be a good idea to shave your head in the Umrah. Leave something for Hajj. So maybe you can shave during the days of Hajj. So you will shave on this day if you didn't shave before that. You don't have to shave, you can trim. Some people, when they come back to the UK, they have issues at work. They're not allowed to come with a baldy haircut. So they might just trim. That's fine. That's okay. Okay. So the same rulings apply here. Then after that, on that night, if you can, you will go and you'll perform tawaf and sa'i again. Now you know how to perform tawaf, you know how to perform sa'i, so there is no harm, just go and do it. However, you don't have to now go in the state of ihram. Part of the ihram is lifted. Some of the restrictions are lifted. The restrictions of wearing clothes are lifted. Perfume, trimming, cutting, those are lifted. What you still can't do is intimacy and relations until you go and perform the tawaf. So you will go on that evening or that morning on the 10th if you can. If you can do on the 10th, that's fine. If you can't, because it's very busy. Everybody's trying to go to the same place. It may not be so easy. If you end up not going on the 10th, you can go on the 11th. But you will go in your normal clothes now and you will perform tawaf. This time, you're performing tawaf in your normal clothes, so you don't uncover your shoulder and there's no running in the tawaf. So you'll go perform the tawaf that you did like before. When you perform the 7 circuits, you will go make 2 units at Maqam Ibrahim. If you want to drink Zamzam, you can drink Zamzam. Then you will go and perform the sa'i the same way with your clothes on. Perform the sa'i. And once you've done that, you have completed all of the things which are required for the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Eid. If you can't do on the 10th and you did it the following morning or the following afternoon or the following evening, there is no harm in that. There is a difference of opinion. Shaykh Al-Albani sees that if you can't do it before the Maghrib prayer, then you have to go back into your ihram. But that's a shadh opinion. Astaghfirullah, I shouldn't say that's a shadh opinion, but that's an opinion which is not so readily followed nowadays. Nowadays, the scholars of Saudi Arabia, they said there is no harm in that because it's busy. So you can do if you can't do the tawaf, then you can do it later and you don't have to go back into the state of ihram. Now then, after you have done all of those things, now you are required to go back to Mina because you have to spend the night in Mina. The scholars say the least amount of time that you have to spend is half the night. So you'll perform the tawaf and the sa'i, and if you decide that you want to get something to eat or have an ice cream or take a little bit of rest, you can do that, but you have to get back to Mina to spend the night in Mina. So you'll go back to Mina, to your tents where you originally started on the 8th. Mina is tent city. There are tents as far as the eye can see. So you have to really know what you're doing or stay with the group to be able to get back to your tent. So you'll go back to your tent and you'll spend the night there. What are you required to do? Now the next 3 days or 2 days, because now the 10th is completed. What remains is the 11th and the 12th, or the 11th, 12th and 13th. On these days you remain in Mina to stone. That's what's required. Otherwise you can leave Mina. You leave, go back to Mecca, pray in the masjid, whatever, but you must do the stoning of the day and then come and spend at least half the night. So you will remain in Mina now. These are the days, as the Prophet said, these are the days of aklin wa shurbin wa dhikrin. These are the days of eating and drinking and remembering Allah. So that's what you will do. So you are now required for the next 2 days or 3 days to stone. Remember, you stoned on the 10th. That stoning was only one of the pillars. It was called the Jamratul Kubra, the greater pillar. They're all the same size, but the last one is called the greater one. That was the only one you stoned. Now for the next 2 or 3 days. Why do I say 2 or 3? Because it's your choice. The minimum is 2 and the maximum is 3. وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ فِي أَيَّامٍ مَعْدُودَاتٍ فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and remember Allah in these number of days. Which days? Days 11th, 12th and 13th. So whoever is in a hurry and leaves after 2 days, there is no ithm, there is no sin on him. وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. And the one who remains behind, there is no sin on him. So you remain behind, and when do you stone? After the dhuhr adhan is said, you can go and stone. So you'll go, and now you need for each day 21 pebbles. So you'll go and stone. You'll go to the first jamrah, and it just happens that the system that they have, the cattle grid system that they have, it always ends up, you start on that side and you always come to the 3 pillars. So there's a pillar here, a pillar here and a pillar here. It's a huge concourse. I'm saying there's a pillar, obviously it is not scaled down, but it's huge. So you'll come to the first pillar, that is the lesser pillar. It's the same size, but it's called the lesser pillar. You will stone 7 pebbles. Same thing, chickpeas. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's it. After that though, the Prophet ﷺ turned, after he stoned, he moved away from the Jamrah. You'll be directed away from the Jamrah. And it's obviously busy, it's dangerous to stay there. You'll move away from it, you'll face the direction of the Qibla and you'll make a dua. The Prophet made such a long dua. So you'll make a dua after stoning the first one. Then you will go to the second one. Again you will stone the second one. Then you will make a long dua. Then you will stone the third one and you will not make a dua, you will go back to your camp. Or you can go to Mecca, wherever you want, for half the night. So that will be the 11th and the 12th. If you decide to stay on the 13th, there's no harm. If you decide to leave, you have to leave before the obligatory time for stoning. And then obviously if you leave before that, then you don't have to stone. But if you don't leave before that, then you will have to remain back in stone. So you will leave, you will go to your hotel, and of course with that the Hajj is completed. Only thing that remains for you now, the final rite, which is in Mecca, is what we call the farewell tawaf. Tawaful wida'. When you say farewell to Mecca. The scholars say, and this is the rajih opinion, this is the more correct opinion, based on proof, is that for Umrah, if you go for Umrah and then you're leaving, it is Sunnah. Sunnah, meaning it's not obligatory to make the farewell tawaf. But when you perform Hajj, then it's obligatory to perform the farewell tawaf. So the day you're leaving, the last thing that you will do, as the Prophet said, Ij'al akhir ahadukum bil bayt. The last thing that you do before leaving Mecca is to perform the tawaf. There is no sa'i, just tawaf. So you'll do 7 circuits in your normal clothes, and you'll do 2 units of prayer, and then you will leave Mecca. And with that, you have completed the Hajj. That is the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ summarized. Maybe we've kept you a little bit longer than we expected to, but I do apologize for that. If there are any questions, just very quickly, I want to ask you, who's performing Hajj this year? I know Brother Tahir, anybody, and Tashmeen, and me. Anybody else? Okay, brothers, you have to make an effort now. Everybody has to try and perform tawaf. Perform Hajj. And perform Hajj, the performance of Hajj is a duty which a person, if they are able to, they should do it quickly. They shouldn't delay.
No, just a question from the sister.
Okay, so there's a question from one of the sisters, so I'll try and do this question first. For extra prayers during Hajj, do you not pray Sunnah prayers and just Nawafil as a traveller, or can you pray Sunnahs too? It is something which is a dispensation which is given to the Muslims. So it's Sunnah to leave the Sunnahs. So it's Sunnah, it's recommended to leave them. But if a person did them, they're allowed to do them, but it is Sunnah to leave them. But you can make Nawafil. So there is no problem with that. Wallahu a'lam. Any other questions?
Sheikh, I've heard some groups mention that they go to Jeddah, they don't assume the ihram on the plane, and then from Jeddah they go to Mecca or whatever, then they go to Tan'im, and then they make their ihram from there.
Yeah, this is something which some people have said. That they arrive in Jeddah, they're not in the state of ihram. They go to Mecca, they're not in the state of ihram. They go to the hotel rooms, check in, and then they go back out to Tan'im to come and they go to Tan'im. Tan'im is an area, a boundary outside of Mecca. That boundary, the Prophet when Aisha radiallahu anha, when she came to Mecca having performed Hajj, after the Hajj she was crying. The Prophet said, Aisha, what's the matter? Why are you crying? She said, Ya Rasulullah, everybody else performed Hajj and Umrah. I only got Hajj. Why? Because she went into a cycle. She went into a menstrual cycle, so she couldn't perform Umrah. And then Hajj came, so she went straight into Hajj. So she didn't do an Umrah. So this is why she was crying. So the Prophet said to her brother Abdurrahman, take her to the closest boundary of Mecca, which is Tan'im. There is a masjid there now which is built called Masjid Aisha. So the Prophet instructed Abdurrahman, take her to Tan'im. From there she assumed ihram. What's the idea? The idea is to go out of Mecca and come back in again. However, for those people who are coming to Mecca and they have the intention to perform Hajj and Umrah, they cannot cross the miqat zone without going into the state of ihram. So those people are mistaken, and this is not correct. And for those people, if they're not able to go back, they should give a slaughter. Maybe they do slaughter. Some of these groups, you'll go with some groups, and if you go with us, you'll slaughter one animal. You go with them, everybody's got 5 or 6. Because they deliberately break the rules and then slaughter to make ease for themselves. And this is not correct. Now that answers the question. Some scholars have said that Jeddah is a miqat. That's an opinion which is a minority opinion, and it's largely not an opinion which is followed. I'm not saying it's wrong, but this is not the opinion that I follow. The majority of the scholars don't see that. You had a question?
Yeah, actually, when people have done Umrah and Hajj, and if they stay in Makkah and if they're doing Tawaf, do they have to do the 2 rak'ah?
Yeah. Every time you do a tawaf, whether it is an tawaf for Umrah, tawaf for Hajj, farewell tawaf, just nafil tawaf, you should do 2 rakat. Yes.
I've got my ihram, I put it in my suitcase. What am I supposed to do? I can assume ihram. and then put the clothes later
Yeah.
on, or what?
Yeah. If you by accident, let's say now you are, traveling straight from UK to Jeddah, and Jeddah, you're going straight to Mecca to perform Umrah, and you forgot to pack your ihram in your hand luggage. Now, you're crossing the miqat, so you got to make ihram. So you make ihram, okay. So you made ihram, but now you've broken one of the mahdurat of ihram because you're in normal clothes. So now you have to give a dam for that. So you'd have to give a dam for it. It's a costly mistake, and this is why the guides or the people who are the tour operator that you go with, they should remind everybody. We always remind people. We go with a group. We've been going for a long time, me and Sheikh Tashfeen, and at the airport we try and make a point to get to the airport early, so we meet all the people and remind the men, because it's the men that are the ones who are in problem if they miss if they pack their ihram. So we always tell them, if some situations you're going to go straight to Medina, so it doesn't matter where you pack it. But if you're going to Mecca, then you need to have your ihram with you. So we remind them. So it's it's really important. And even if they don't meet you, nowadays, mashallah, we got all these these idiot boxes that we carry around, and you can through that message everybody, but there's always somebody who says, oh, I can't read it right, and I don't know how to use it, and I didn't see it, and I forgot. But anyway, what can you do? All you can do is do your best and remind people. Anybody else? Because I know Brother Tah's got a few questions. Yes?
You stated earlier, you have to have wudu to do dua. You need to be in a state of wudu without throwing the whole dua.
Yes. You have to be in a state of wudu for the whole tawaf.
Now I'm coming from Medina. Do I have to assume, I'm wearing ihram, but do I have to assume on the train, or do we assume from our hotel?
Good question. Now then, nowadays there's a lot of things. Hajj is evolving. Because of the numbers of people who are going, it's not the same as it used to be maybe 20 years ago. There are high-speed trains, there are more people going, so you don't have to go to the miqat. The most important thing is that when you pass the miqat boundary, you have to say your intention. So where do you say it? Do you say now, say for example, I'm going from Medina to the train station. From the train station, I'm going to Mecca. On a good day, on a car, it's 4 hours. Train does it in 2 hours. So you can see the convenience, and it's very comfortable. You come out the other end not tired at all. You have the strength to go and perform the Umrah. So it's a very good option, isn't it, for people? So what do they do? Where do they assume the ihram from? So what I have always done is, don't assume it from your hotel room in Medina. Go to the train station. When you get on the train, they will tell you, we're passing the miqat now. So you're already prepared, you've got your clothes on. You knew when they announce you on the train, just make your intention.
Do I have to pay 2 rakat for the...
Do you have to pray 2 rakat? This is a good question. These 2 rakat that people associate with the ihram, they are actually not part of the ihram. They've got nothing to do. If you didn't do it, the ihram is fine. The Prophet ﷺ, Sheikh Albani mentions in his very amazing book called Manasik al-Hajj wal-Umrah, he said that the Prophet ﷺ performed prayer. That prayer was the Asr prayer. I believe it was the Asr prayer the Prophet ﷺ performed. So that's what he was performing. And of course he was traveling, so he performed 2 units. So that's what that is. If a person wants to make nawafil, 2 rakat nafil, they can do it, but there is no association with that in the ihram. Wallahu a'lam. Very quickly, I want to just mention something. Somebody asked me, you asked me that you have to have wudu for the whole of the tawaf. Let's say now, somebody's performing the tawaf and they broke their wudu. They've done 2 circuits, 3 circuits. What do? Or the prayer comes. They have to stop for the prayer. So what do? So they will perform the prayer, or they will go and make wudu, and then they will come back. If they remember where they were exactly, they will resume the tawaf from there. If they don't remember, let's say they did 3.5 circuits, then they didn't remember where they were. So they start from the beginning of the fourth one again. So they'll start the fourth one. Okay? If you did tawaf and you forgot how many circuits you did, have I done 6? Have I done 7? I'm not sure. Then you will do based on what you're sure. You're sure you've done 6, you're not sure if you've done 7. So based on the fact that you've done 6 and do 1. If it's an extra one, alhamdulillah, no problem. You can't have one less. If the prayer time comes, make the prayer and then go back to where you were and continue the tawaf. If you can't remember exactly where you were, you can start that one again and complete your circuits like that. Yes. Go ahead.
Are we allowed to wear slippers when we're doing tawaf?
Are we allowed to wear slippers? The actual answer to that is, Sharia wise, there is no harm. In terms of the Sharia, there is no restriction. You can wear slippers. They have to be clean though. But in terms of the etiquettes of the masjid and what people will give you grief for, it maybe might, not necessarily be the best option, because people will be there, you step on people's toes, they will step on your toes. So there is nothing Sharia wise to stop you. You can do that, but you've got to make sure that they're clean slippers. When you go to make sa'i though, sa'i is outside of the masjid. Most people wear shoes there. Slippers, most people wear slippers. Any other questions?
Yes.
Just a few questions from the sisters, just 1 second.
There's 3.
Yeah, the question was, what should you do if you break your wudu while in the middle of the tawaf? We've already answered that question. إذا انتقض الوضوء يرجع يتوضأ ويرجع إلى مكان الذي كنت فيه وثم تستمر من هناك وتكمل. So the second question is, how many times you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar? You only say Bismillah in the first one. In the bidayah تقول بسم الله الله أكبر, بعد ذلك يكون الله أكبر. Does every type of Hajj require to do slaughter? La. Not every type of, there's 3 types of nusuk. There is tamattu', which is the one the Prophet recommended. There is qiran, the one that the Prophet actually did. After he did qiran, which was to take his own animal with him, he announced to the people, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done this, which is tamattu. So the Prophet recommended tamattu, even though he did qiran. Both of those have a sacrifice. There is another nusuk, some scholars have a different opinion on this matter, which is called mufrad. Mufrad is somebody who just does the Hajj, doesn't do an umrah, and which there is no requirement for a slaughter. But those who are performing tamattu, each and every individual who performs tamattu has to have a sacrifice for themselves. So it isn't a sacrifice for one sacrifice for the couple or for the family. No, each one who performs the nusuk, there is a sacrifice for that individual. لِكُلِّ حَاجٍ هَدِي. Any other questions? Just 1 second. Go on.
Are we allowed to use toothpaste while we state of ihram?
Okay, are we allowed to use toothpaste? There is a difference of opinion, but inshallah there is no harm in using toothpaste, because you're not actually using it to perfume yourself, you're just brushing your teeth to clean them.
Also related to this, if you're using an antibiotic cream or something on your feet, they have a very strong smell though.
Yeah.
It's not perfume, but it's very strong.
Yeah. If you have medication that you have to use, like creams, and you're in the state of ihram, and they have a medicinal type of smell, a lot of scholars have made tarkhis on that. They said it's allowed to use it because it's not perfume, which is for the purpose of perfuming. Nobody wants to smell like tiger balm, do they really? Or, I don't know, some of those creams that people have, you don't want to smell like that. It's just because that's the natural smell for that thing. So they say it's allowed for that. Perfumes which are actually perfumes, that's what's forbidden. Are we allowed to take photos and show our Hajj? If the photo is something which will encourage other people to do Hajj, not for showing off, there's no harm in that. Sometimes you take a picture of the Kaaba to show other people. I always make some footage to encourage my children and people that I know, to encourage them to go and visit Allah's house, to give them an idea, to teach them. There's no problem with that. But don't do it to show off to people, oh look at me, I'm doing Hajj. then obviously your actions will not be accepted. 1 second, just very quickly.
When people have completed Sa'i and they are to Marwa, there are people I've seen performing 2 rak'ahs.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah. Sometimes you find people, they go to Marwa, they finish the Sa'i, they've completed it, and then they perform 2 units of prayer. There is no 2 units of prayer. This is an innovation. There's no 2 units of prayer. Right.
Doctors are recommending these plasters for your blisters. They compete, and they're very difficult to take off. And they recommend that you keep them on for a few days till you heal, because you can get infected. So are we allowed to keep them?
You're allowed to keep them. Plasters are not a problem. They're okay. They're okay. You can wash over them, no problem.
And what if somehow I missed 8th Dhul Hijjah, I didn't go to Mina, I go 9th Dhul Hijjah, go straight to Arafat?
Yeah. The 8th of Dhul Hijjah is sunnah, but it is not obligatory. Hajj, you know, if you look at the bare essentials of Hajj, it starts on the 9th and it finishes on the 12th. So the 8th you can miss. But, you know, if we can go there, we should do it. If we can't, you know, then inshallah the person who isn't, he has an excuse, his excuses with Allah, inshallah he'll be okay. So it's allowed to miss it, yes.
Another question, in the Mina, say for instance, we only carry 1 ihram. In the toilets, they all wet and it gets wet, and you doubt that it's not good anymore.
Just rinse it.
Are you allowed to?
He's allowed to rinse it. You know, some people have this misconception about ihram, and this is why they carry 2 ihrams. I don't know why people recommend 2 ihrams. There's no need for 2 ihrams. The whole idea is to go dirty and disheveled. And if you soil it, rinse it. Wherever you think that, you know, maybe it's got something on it, give it a rinse. If it means washing it all, give it all a wash, because you know what, it's going to be so hot there, you're going to be happy for it to be cool for you. So there's no harm in that.
Can I take my pebbles from here?
Can you take your pebbles from here? You know, the scholars have given sanction that the pebbles can go from anywhere. They don't have to be from any specific place. But obviously, the Prophet took them from there. So if we take them from there, you know, on the back of the fact that the Prophet did it, and that's, you know, following him, inshallah, there's reward in that.
Nowadays I've seen the women,
No, go on.
They've got these special hats, you know, like looks like one of the scholars was saying, like, I don't know who invented these, like they're fielding the cricket field, something, they wear those. Are they allowed, or it's just
to keep the sun off them?
Yeah, they're like big hats and that.
I don't think there's anything necessarily forbidden about them, except the fact that, you know, maybe you say,
they stand out.
Yeah, maybe they stand out, and you know, sometimes libas al-shuhra is a problem. You know, you stand out with your clothes so people look at you. That's maybe the issue. But you know, if somebody's wearing something that will keep themselves shaded and protected from the sun, there's no harm in that. Because one of the common illnesses that people prone to is sunstroke and heat stroke. It is going to be very hot this year, and it's in the middle of summer, and staying out of the sun is very important. You had a question?
Yeah, you said when you perform your Hajj, after that, if you've got time, if you want to do extra Umrah, and where's the nikahs?
Extra Umrah. We'll come to that at the end, that story, that one. That's a tricky one, that one.
You told us the masjid in Mina, all the prophets.
Yeah. There is a masjid in Mina. For those of you who are going to perform Hajj, there is a masjid in Mina called Masjid al-Khayf. The Prophet Jibreel came to him. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, pray in this valley. This is the blessed valley. 70 prophets came and prayed here. So you can go and pray in Masjid al-Khayf. Yes. Masjid al-Khayf, where you are, it'll probably be about a half an hour walk. It's probably about that for us as well. Masjid al-Khayf is a huge masjid. You can see its minarets from a distance. If you can pray there, that's fine, no problem. You can go and pray there. Extra reward. It's not necessary for the part of that. The Prophet recommended it, so it's recommended for us as well. If you want to finish now. Okay, I'm going to just finish now. So I'm going to give you one question. Sorry, you
Let's say I've done much.
From the, yeah, go ahead, ladies' question.
They ask me saying is there any minimum time required to go for Umrah?
Minimum time?
Minimum required yeah. هل أدنى معين للعمرة في السنة خلال العمرة؟
From what I understand from the question, is that in terms of how much time you spend?
No, how many times you should do Umrah?
Or how many times you should do Umrah? The scholars, some scholars have said that once. That's the requirement. One Umrah and one Hajj. Some scholars said Hajj is the obligation. So if you've done Hajj and Umrah together. That's the minimum. Wallahu a'lam. Your questions are finished. This is the last question. I do apologize, we've kept you for a long time. I mean, it just seems to be a lot of questions, and I think because it's important because some people are going for Hajj. So your question, which is a common issue, people go to perform Hajj, people go to perform Umrah. They've gone to perform Umrah, they've got 2 weeks, they've got 7 or 8 days in Mecca. So, they've got dead relatives, they've got a list of people who ask them, do Umrah for me, so they go and perform 20 Umrahs while they're there. Is this recommended? No, it is not. What's the ruling for it? Khilaf as-Sunnah. It is not the Sunnah of the Prophet. Allah's Messenger travelled 10 days, 12 days to Mecca. When he arrived there, he performed 1 Umrah and came back. Had there been merit in doing it again and again and again, he would have done it. Now, you might think this is a contradiction. It's not a contradiction. The scholars say, based on the hadith of Aisha that I mentioned before, when she wasn't able to perform Umrah in her Hajj, the Prophet allowed her to go to the boundary of Mecca, out of Mecca. She went into the state of Ihram, from there came back and performed Umrah. So that goes to show it is allowed. So people can do it. But like I said, it's not the Sunnah, it's Khilaf as-Sunnah. It's not the Sunnah of the Prophet or his companions. Allah knows best. And with that, we conclude. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Anybody has any questions later on, they can always ask me. I'm here. Especially those brothers and sisters who are going for Hajj or Umrah. Especially now Hajj, inshallah, they're welcome to ask me anytime. Inshallah, I will answer their questions. Ma'ayakum. Subhanallah. There are some grapes here on the chair. If anybody would like to take some grapes, they're welcome to take them. I hope inshallah. Allah أنت كذلك الله يحفظك جزاك الله خير. وإياكم عام السلام. Inshallah, hopefully it's straightforward.
People are creating stuff, just to know.
No, it's good.
It's good to ask questions.
Absolutely.
This is Hajj, this is a joke.
Yes. I think it's very important people get it right.
Now, like I said, people always, you can assume, and there's a lot of people that they forget and hear and see these group chats. Or what if I do this and that? Still build it up, inshallah, somebody, because they keep making say this. I don't know why these brothers, Abdurrahman is very strict, but sometimes he has no choice. I don't think I was going through all the guides. I don't think anybody else is there. Nothing. It's just ordinary people who don't mess with them, misusing them. So that's sad for me. But what can you do? That's why I say we learn it. We do. Alas.
That's what we do.
Just travel with them.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
But if Abdurrahman's there.